I'm excited to welcome Frances Pomposo, who is a legal operations leader at Cisco and who has worn multiple hats, to round out the discussion to hear her perspective as a legal ops partner and how GCs and legal ops partners can partner together to move the business forward. So Frances, please welcome to the stage.
I am so grateful to have you here today. Your insights and what you just discussed, I think, is critical to everybody here. And I'm very excited to dig in with you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
So with this topic, I think we all know how key, just in our daily roles, that kind of partnership is between legal operations and a general counsel or CLO. We have the benefit of having Irene here today and a ton to talk about, so I'm going to jump right in and ask you a couple questions. Sure. I think the first is around impact. I'd love to hear about how you define impact when it comes to legal ops and what makes you really trust and know this team is critical to me, the team, and what I do.
And I hope you heard from my talk today. I think the legal ops profession is so important and should frankly be one of the first hires in a legal team. You bring so much value. And I know that my legal operations team is having an impact when first, if I want to find some metric or want to find some insights, and I can readily do that because it's already in a dashboard or a system that I can go to. And I know that they're also having an impact if my team is also using the systems, tools, and processes that you've already built. Because that shows, first, that you've enabled and trained them very well. And second, you built systems that they can actually use in an everyday way. Because the key part of building systems and tools is you want people to use them. And if you don't have people using them, what's the value? But I know you're having an impact when everyone's using them, they're gaining insights from them, they're gaining efficiencies from that. And on top of that, if those tools are also bringing far more productivity than I would have had otherwise, that's also always a plus and a showcase of value that legal ops teams bring to the legal team.
Those are such key highlights, and I just want to make sure that everybody takes those away too, because those are things that we talk about all the time, but I think it's really important to connect it back that there really are the same goals about change management, user experience, surfacing insights, and again, those are all topics that hopefully you glean from all of the discussions at CGI this week, so I'm very happy to hear that. Yeah. I know being a GC is a stressful job, especially now, but I'd love to hear from you what keeps you up at night as a general counsel, and how can legal operations or your chief of staff in the role help you sleep better?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, there were some sleepless nights, and there are two things that really keep me up at times. The first that I mentioned earlier is really something around misalignment at times. And what often happens in executive teams and in businesses is that legal sometimes just gets thrown under the bus. And that's sort of the reality of it. A lot of sales teams will say, well, legal's holding that up. Marketing will say legal's holding up that contract. This other team will say, legal is holding it up. So there is a lot of legal being thrown under the bus. And I don't want to be defending the team by pointing fingers at other teams. What I want to do is really respond to those thoughtfully and strategically with metrics and with real data. I want to be able to say, if a sales team is saying legal is delaying things, I want to be able to say, well, actually, look at the percentage of contracts that we've signed without any red lines. Look at the percentage of contracts that we've turned around in X number of days in a very fast way. Look at the X number of contracts that were created as a bottleneck because of your team or because of the other side counterparty. And so I want to respond to the business in the same way by providing data. Data is what talks at the end of the day. I'm not going to be pointing fingers and playing politics. I want to play real clean game of strategy and actual data. And so to the extent that legal ops teams can empower me with metrics and insights, that helps me do my job better and to really become great partners with other businesses, because I don't want legal to be the team that's thrown under the bus in any way. I want our team to shine, because there's so many hardworking people in the legal team, just like in a kitchen, like I was explaining earlier, and I want them to shine, and I want to use those metrics to showcase them. And the second thing that really keeps me up at night is team dynamics. As a general counsel, you're dealing with not only the executive team, the CEO, the C-levels that may or may not understand your job, but you also have a lot of teams within your team that are asking for promotions, that are also asking for performance improvement plans for their team members. And you want to be able to have some insights around their work by not just through performance reviews, but if you have a workflow management tool and you can show that this person has done X amount of work, or that the work has been distributed fairly and yet this person has been doing it so fast and productively and efficiently versus others, it gives me real data again that allows me to make strategic good decisions. And so anytime that legal ops teams can do that, and not only that, like Francis, as you know, you've been a chief of staff. Chief of staffs and legal ops senior professionals often have the year of the general counsel, but they also have the year of the team. If they observe team dynamics that might be helpful, they can always try to raise those with the general counsel, and that may be helpful as we're assessing team dynamics as well too. And so those are different ways that legal ops can add value, and you can see it's such an instrumental, fundamental profession within the legal team.
Team dynamics is a huge aspect that I think doesn't get talked about enough when it comes to legal ops, or honestly just the partnership between any executive legal team.
Yeah.
So the focus on just team dynamics, but also I think the consistent aspect of both of those themes that you brought up is really having a legal ops professional that's going to help you solution.
Yeah.
So either through data or having EQ and understanding people, or how to remove roadblocks proactively in high stress unknown situations. Those are kind of the key areas that I think we can all kind of take away.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to hear that. I think the last question I wanted to ask you was, when a legal ops team brings you a new idea, which we all do, probably more than you would like, but what makes you say yes or no?
I was just at the expo yesterday and I realized there are so many amazing tools out there, but it's really hard for a general counsel, even if they love and embrace innovation, to say yes to everything. So obviously you know that. Because one of the big things that we're under stress is cost. So we also have a budget we need to manage too. So if we are going to invest in a tool, it has to be a tool that solves real business problems. It can't be a tool that's searching for problems and creating problems. And it has to be a tool that has a clear path towards implementation. I have seen so many great tools that were pitched to me as being amazing fail at the implementation stage when all these energies have already gone in to implement, and we've already signed the contract, and you realize the implementation is a whole different beast. And so having a clear pathway around implementation, and as you all know, implementation isn't just a one-person project, it's often a cross-functional project. So to have all those stakeholders aligned will obviously help for us to say yes to that project, especially if it solves real problems. There is a clear path to implementation, and cross-functional leaders are all excited to help partner with you on implementing that. And then the one other thing that, oftentimes, and part of this is my CFO hat that I'm wearing, is what if it doesn't work? I want to be able to rip it out too. And so those are some of the factors that I want to think about as well too, because I don't want to be so embedded in some system only to find out that the system oversold us, or the system actually doesn't work with another system, even though they said it would, but it's on the roadmap for 2 years down the line. And so for those instances, I want to be able to rip it out. So to understand what's the pathway to actually rip it out and use another system is another thing that I want everyone to consider as they're thinking about the tools.
Those are great points, and I think everybody here has heard a ton or experienced it firsthand how good or bad an implementation can go. I think your point too about getting a tool that may highlight issues but is also creating issues is, I didn't think about the two together, but I'd love to know the names of those vendors. But I think that's a great answer, and I think it's a lot for us all to chew on here. So thank you.
Yeah, I won't be naming any vendors.
I think we can flip it over now. I think there's a couple questions that we are able to flip the script on when it comes to kind of the perspective and partnership and collaboration on the chief of staff or legal ops lead with the general counsel.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I'm so honored to be on stage with Frances because she's risen through the ranks of legal ops in many legal teams, and she's become the chief of staff and also VP of legal operations of very many high-profile companies. And so I'm really excited to hear her perspective, as well as also understand, and I'm sure many of you are in the room are curious, how did you rise through the ranks to become such strategic partners to the general counsel?
I appreciate that, and that's very kind. If I'm taking a step back and thinking about the kind of core components, and I think this applies to a number of roles in legal, but in particular the chief of staff or any senior leadership team member, especially legal ops on a legal leadership team, the first really is developing that business acumen, both for your company, your company's financials, your strategy, your long-term strategy and goals, but also for the legal department. So you can't skip the small, boring things. But that's really a key component to really being able to be a trusted partner with the general counsel in being able to have conversations on the fly or to be able to contribute in a way that is helpful. So that's kind of the first piece. I also think that building relationships across the entire organization, again, this is not groundbreaking information, but across the company really is key. If you're trying to do, like you said, a cross-functional implementation for a CLM or doing some type of change management that requires partnership, which it often does in legal, to get something done, if no one knows you in legal and you're asking them for something, it's not going to go very far. So really building those relationships, understanding who key business partners are, but also really focusing on building kind of goodwill and credibility. So when you do have to knock on their door, they know you, they trust you. That really goes a long way. Third is really this concept of being a Swiss Army knife. And the way that I think about that is anticipating issues. I don't want to create anxiety for legal ops professionals, but it is something that if you're really proactively thinking about what could come up and preventing that, that really, I believe, is key to that partnership between a legal ops professional and a general counsel, and also really proving your value in the role. That means also presenting solutions to problems and not ideas. I don't think there's anything more frustrating in my role, but also I know for certain with a general counsel's role where you're just coming with a menu or laundry list of issues and expecting it to dump it on the general counsel's plate. So I've found across my career that if you're able to come with a solution in mind, not a demand, but also having options and like the thinking behind those options at ready, that helps a great deal. And then last is learning to translate legal complexities, which there are a ton of them, into business language. So even if something is very nuanced and dependent on a law or a regulation, I'm not an attorney. That means that I know that I have to take the time to understand what's going on, ask questions, but then also make sure that I can translate it back to my business partners outside of legal in a way that actually lands with them and gives them very succinctly why they need to care about it and what they need to do, instead of just saying, hey, this executive order came. That's not helpful.
And I love that point about being a great anticipator and a Swiss Army knife, because if you can anticipate problems before they reach the GC's desk, you're essentially helping to solve the issue and take an issue off the table that they otherwise would have had to attend to. So you're allowing them to be really strategic with their time and what they're focusing on, and that is such an incredible value add. And so one of the things, obviously, we've been talking a lot about how legal ops can support general counsels, but frankly, it's a two-way street. You need general counsels to support you. And so how can general counsels support the legal ops profession as they're embracing change and innovation as well? Yeah.
I really appreciate you calling that out, and I will say 100% it goes both ways. And I think that is really key to understand and think about. It's not just on the general counsel, and it isn't just on the legal ops professional. So I do think there's a responsibility on both sides if you want an effective partnership. I think the first thing really is having a general counsel that understands what modern legal operations can do.
Yeah.
There are still individuals in corporate environments that don't understand what legal operations is, which is mind-boggling, but it shows just that we do have a lot of work to do still in kind of establishing what it is and not having that be a conversation that continues, honestly, much farther. But having a GC that really understands what can be done really does make a big difference. I think that having a general counsel that understands like Clock's core competencies and maturity models and really appreciates but also wants to engage with a legal ops professional on what they can deliver is really critical. This is another one where I think it's very dependent on the relationship, and it's not an ask I will call out just for blind and haphazard appreciation. But I do think that general counsels and legal ops professionals need to show public acknowledgement and appreciation. The reason why I say that is, again, along that journey of people understanding what legal operations is for a general counsel, that goes through the legal department as well as and in other organizations across the company. You all know that a lot of the time there's work that you do that no one will ever know about, that is behind the scenes. And more often than not, the shout outs for the work that is done go to the teams that you supported in completing the work. So if you, let's say, helped build a compliance platform, the head of compliance might be the one that's talking about it in a QBO. Or they may be the ones that get the kudos at the company meeting just about how amazing it is that they did it. So I do really think it's important for general counsels to highlight the value add and also give teams and like leads in the role just appreciation and just visibility, because it does oftentimes go behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So the visibility really is crucial. And then the third really is around empowering legal operations with, and I will say this, appropriate authority. So it's not one size fits all, but if you have the type of dynamic that I think we all want and aim for, there really is nothing more kind of that would be a detriment to someone in legal ops other than a general counsel like constantly undermining their decisions and not supporting them. Everything we do with legal operations often involves difficult things, change management. It may not be the things that people want to do. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if the general counsel and the head of legal ops decide that we're going to do something, there needs to be kind of that unwavering united front, because there truly is nothing more that is a killer to credibility than a general counsel kind of being behind the scenes and saying, you actually don't need to do that. And a good example is like with legal intake, for example. If you're going to require to do it so you get metrics and data, but then the general counsel doesn't do it or tells people that they don't really need to do it, or someone in legal ops can just do it for them, that cuts them off at their knees. So those are really the three areas that I would highlight up front.
I love that part about where you say, certain times that general counsels can undermine what you're doing because they might be saying you don't need to do that. And I've also seen cases where they don't do it and they say, legal ops, can you just do it for me? But you really need the general counsels to also be trained up and to also be enabled. So it really is a partnership in many ways. And so part of the issue with that is that a lot of legal teams are working in their very traditional ways, and they're not embracing innovation as fast as probably the members of Clock. And so when you see these types of legal departments, how can the general counsels also help embrace that innovation and help remove barriers other than by undermining efforts? And hopefully not many general counsels are doing that in the room. But how can general counsels partner with you all to make those innovations successful?
I think it's a really key conversation. So I think the first is, and it's very simple, they have to be kind of patient zero in the proof of concept. So if we're going to implement a new technology, or if we're going to invest in an AI tool, the general counsel really does need to be in it. And that means having an understanding of what the value add is, having the ability to speak to different audiences about the benefit and why they should care and why they should do it. I think that's really key when it comes to innovation. I think it also just sets the tone for people across the department that it's not optional. So if the general counsel starting from the top is doing it, that removes just so much noise that will exist if that doesn't happen, whether it's through support or actually participating on the ground. I also think that attorneys right now in this environment across legal departments are tasked with too much. And I can even say as a legal ops professional, I'm overwhelmed with like the rate of AI and technology and just the constant kind of barrage of asks, different things you need to learn about, and then do your day job in addition to that. So I fully empathize with just the environment generally. But I also think that from a leadership perspective, there needs to be KPIs set, but also the goals of the legal department need to include some aspect of innovation. So you're kind of planting these seeds across different points with the department, whether it's through talent development, whether it's through performance and career management and incentives. As long as you have those multiple levers, you really do create kind of the environment that everybody wants to be able to innovate and then not run into as many roadblocks across the board. The last thing, and this is something that I think everybody's talked about and knows about, but it really is creating a kind of safe to fail culture. And I think the biggest part about that is really having an environment where it's not encouraging failure or that there isn't consequences from bad decision making. But I do think that having the support and flexibility, and this comes from a legal ops person knowing what they're doing as well, in being able to take ownership of something, move it forward, and then prevent it from happening again. But there does need to be the space and kind of safe environment to be able to do that. The last point really is around having time. So I can say that I struggle with this a great deal in having the allocated time to focus on innovation. Innovation doesn't happen without the ability to have kind of the environment and circumstances to do it. So whether that's time in your day, whether that's conversations with certain people, whether it's additional resources or budget, innovation's not going to come if you're in back-to-back meetings all day and you don't even have a time, like a minute to take a breath. Innovation's not going to happen there. And then the last really is around support and understanding of change management and really being willing to be that executive sponsor. So I know that I fill out templates constantly where I'll put like our general counsel as the executive sponsor, but really leaning in, and it's on the legal ops professional to help do this in saying, this is what the role means to you, or kind of giving them talking points and helping them be successful in truly being that executive partner, but being willing to advocate across C-suites, across like implementations, or when cooperation isn't happening cross-functionally. So I think those are really the key areas that innovation needs in order to thrive in the kind of legal ops environment.
And one of the key things that you talked about is modeling leadership behavior. The leader at the top has to model behavior that you want the team to model. And the same way the legal ops person has to model the behavior that they want the team to emulate from a process systems perspective as well too. And so one of the topics that I talked earlier about with leadership is that oftentimes general counsels rise through the top because of IQ, not necessarily EQ. Hopefully many of the general counsels you're working with are thriving in their EQ dimension. But if they're not, how can legal ops professionals help them on the EQ side? Because oftentimes you're wearing the seat of a chief of staff. You're becoming a very close confidant of the general counsel. So as a final takeaway, what final tip do you have for those in the room about how they can support the general counsels in their leadership?
really quickly, because we have about a minute left, but I do want to say that EQ is a huge aspect of this. And I think having a general counsel that allows the legal ops team to have a seat at the table in discussions around talent development, morale, dynamics, because they're the ones that are kind of on the ground seeing it day to day. We interact with team members in different contexts than you do as a general counsel. So having that perspective on things that you may not know about really allows you to have those actionable insights. I think creating regular check-ins where you can with people across legal ops organizations, so not just the VP or the chief of staff, but through the organization, you're going to glean insights that you didn't even know existed. And then the last really is on being a sounding board for communication strategies. So part of change management is communication, and I think that's an area that we don't focus on enough.
It's the C of ABC.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So those really are the key areas when it comes to change management and communication. So yeah, thank you, and an amazing question.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those insights. Really helpful.
Well, thank you, Irene. I can speak for everyone here in saying that I truly appreciate you coming, speaking with us, sharing your insights, and being a partner to Legal Ops and Clock. So thank you.
Thank you.